When somebody is telling you exactly who they are, do yourself a favor and believe them. So many times it has happened where we always say, oh man, I just did not see the red flags. Realistically, they were waving it right in front of our faces and we just chose to ignore them. On this episode, we're going to go a little bit into believing who they say they are. Let's get it. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Solutions Podcast. As always, it's your host, Ramsey. First and foremost, I want to begin by saying, why haven't you followed? Why haven't you shared? Why haven't you been supporting, even though I know you're listening? Even though you know you're listening. Man, if you got hate in your heart, just let it out, my brother. Just let it out, my sister. But I'm just joking. I do want y'all to do it in the kindness of your heart, but I understand things happen, okay? But please understand, we have the Instagram page, we have the TikTok page, we have the X page, we have all the pages where y'all can show a little bit of love, a little bit of support, a little bit of engagement goes a long way in order to keep the show going and to keep it going more consistently. All right, that's just the beginning. But let me get into the topic of this conversation, or let me get into the topic of this episode, which is actually listening to what somebody is telling you, especially when it comes to red flags, especially when it comes to them telling you who they really are. Well, what do you mean, Dr. Ramsey? Well, I'm glad you asked. I will give you some examples. You ever heard or you ever dealt with a girl that's like, oh, I'm crazy. Oh, I'm crazy. Oh, I'm crazy. Or you ever heard or dealt with that dude that says, I'm just no good for you. Guess what? They're telling you that they're fucking crazy, and they're telling you that they're not good for you. So when you go and get your heart broken, or when you go and get burned by these individuals, you have nobody to blame but yourself, because we are the ones that chose to not believe them when they were telling us exactly who they were. Let me get into a little bit of a story time. So while I was going to a trip, it was a military working trip, we ended up linking up with like a group of people. Like we always end up like always being stuck with people that we don't even know. And we end up just working together because that's how things are. We show up to a new class, a new school, and we work with people that are just strangers to us, and those are going to be our new comrades for the month, 2 months, whatever it is that we're in. This individual that was in the vehicle with us off the back said, oh, when I don't like someone, I make sure that I burn them, and I make sure that I end their career, and I have done crazy stuff in the past. And the thing is, everybody in the car was laughing, but I just stayed dead silent. I didn't find anything funny in that statement, but everybody was laughing. They thought he was joking around and everything. And he went off and told a story where he went out of his way to record somebody secretly and then send those videos off to that individual's house just to start problems. Now, I'm not going to dismiss that the individual was doing the wrong thing, but to go out of your way to just secretly record somebody and send stuff to his family, that is completely inappropriate. And I asked him, well, what happened? Like, oh, he was just an asshole to me. Like, he was just an asshole to you. Did you ever try just talking to him? Like, no. Like, why? He was an asshole. He got what he had coming. I was like, okay, well, all right. But everybody laughed it off. Everybody thought it was funny. I don't see anything funny about this person being around me, because if that's what he did to somebody after a time of knowing them, a person that quote unquote was their friend in the past, what would this individual do to me? Or what would this individual do to me? And no shit, there we were. With time, they started breaking the relationships that they had built because they got a little bit too personal instead of keeping it professional. Because take in mind that we all just met. And people, especially when it comes to the military, people tend to get too comfortable too fast. And this goes with in or out the military. You should never get too comfortable with somebody you're not willing to share a home with. I will say that again. You should never get too comfortable with somebody you're not willing to share a home with. So this individual started having personal problems. They were not getting along. They were not looking at each other eye to eye. They were just not able to get along as they thought they did because they got too comfortable. All of a sudden, their true colors started to show, and it started to show very, very, very early. Now, this individual that told us that story, guess what? All of a sudden was sneaking around, following the other person that he was mad at, trying to take notes of all of their actions, trying to make accusations, trying to make false statements about the individual, was doing all kinds of things that weren't adding up as far as being a good person and being a professional and any of that. They were just going out of the way, looking and looking and looking and making perceptions into reality, or just making stories up. They will see something and they will turn it into something else. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at the news. Look at the news. You go on 3 different channels, they have the same exact story, a different version of it, even though it's the same story. So now this other individual ended up getting upset. They're like, what the I thought we were cool, da 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 da. And I was like, hey bro, like they literally told you that they got upset with one of their old friends, and he went out of his way to burn his career, and probably ended his home life, his home family. And he was like, nah, he wouldn't do that. I'm like, bro, he literally told you that's what he did. And y'all laughed. Y'all were laughing, and I was in the back silent. Why? Because that was fucked up. Me personally, I don't surround myself around those type of people. I don't surround myself around people that might burn me, especially when they're literally telling me to my face. They will do that if they feel they need to or they want to. I'll go into another story where a friend of mine, he was dating this very, very, very good looking chick. But even she mentioned, she's like, oh yeah, she's crazy, she's wild and everything. She cannot be tamed. And I'm just listening to these things and they're like, okay, well, is that someone that you should want to settle with, regardless of gender? They say they're wild, they say they're crazy, and they say they cannot be tamed. And at the time, the individual was in lust, and he was like, oh yeah, she's awesome, she's really cool, and it's everything is so exciting, so great. And then after a while, she ended up realizing that she was wild as fuck, and she was fucking nuts. And she ended up like, would go to his job, will end up like causing a havoc at his work. She will go out, she will leave her kids with him in order for her to go out. And he was just like, I don't know what to do. I was like, bro, leave. Like, no, but you know, she's not really this way. I was like, what makes you say that? She said in front of us, in front of all the other homies, I am crazy, I am wild, I cannot be tamed. She never said, this is the man to tame me. She never said any of that. And she never changed her stance. So with that information, what made you believe that this is someone that you want to have a long-term relationship with when they literally are telling you who they are? And now you're upset with them because they are doing exactly what they said they were going to do. I don't understand how you can be upset with them. Luckily, they broke up before there was any like permanent damage, such as having kids out of wedlock, or before they got married by any sort of the state, you know. So luckily that guy ended up getting out of the situation that quick. But that was another example of when somebody tells you who they are, please believe them. So what must we begin to do? Again, first is listen. Listen to all the things that they say. Listen to when they say a red flag about themselves. And a red flag doesn't have to be something known to the world. Like everybody knows killing is bad. Let's just say it, right? Killing just out of pure hate is bad. Let's just say everybody agrees with that statement. It doesn't have to be something like that. It could just be something that you know you do not like, or you know that you cannot deal with in a long-term basis. When they put that information out there, listen to every single thing that somebody is saying, and don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions, such as, hey, I'm crazy. Cool. Whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean by crazy? Like, have you gone to a doctor and got checked? Or you're crazy because you like to jump off of planes? What makes you feel that way? The reason why you want to ask clarifying questions is because if this is a person that you want to engage with, whether it's relationship or whether it's friendship or whether it's partnership, you have to be aware of their tenacious beliefs and what they're willing to do and not do. Next, we should evaluate, is detaching myself from this person and from their situation the best idea or the worst idea or not a good idea at all? Or do I have to find a way to work around this because this is someone I cannot get away from, such as a coworker, such as a boss, maybe a family member that you live with that you do not have the means to get out of that situation. Okay, once we have realized I have to deal with this person now, don't forget that they already armed you with the information you need on how to deal with them. Now, that's why I always stress to people, especially when it comes to my profession, try to be professional at all times. Why? Because someone is always looking for what you're doing wrong. Someone is always looking for how they can get you. You don't believe me? Think back at your life. Think back at your life when you were just chilling like a villain, making a killing, and all of a sudden someone just starts hating on you out of nowhere. Or somebody just starts looking at, like, people just start approaching you and it's like, wait, what's going on? Oh, well, so-and-so person said, or they'll just say a rumor about, hey, I heard this. And then you ask them, hey, where did this come from? Or, oh, well, I don't want to say this and that. You also got to be wary about those people as well. It's like, don't ever deal with somebody that wants to play both sides. Do not do that to yourself. Because they, right there and then, showed you who they were. And people say that, like, oh, well, we shouldn't be snitching, yada, yada. Like, it's not snitching. You had the audacity to come at me and say some rumor that somebody said, but you don't have the balls to tell me who said it? Nah, you are the problem, and you're a snake. And think about that. If you're the type of person that tells people, oh, I heard this, but you're not willing to tell them where it came from, think about your values and why you're doing that. Why even bring it up in the first place? Let's ask ourselves that question. Why would we ever bring up something that somebody said and not tell them where it came from? That's just rude. All right, so let me get off my soapbox and let's summarize a little bit of today's lessons. So we started with the main lesson in the main topic of this episode, which is, if someone tells you who they are, you best believe them. When people are speaking, active listening is extremely important, so you can actually hear exactly what they're telling you and exactly who they are and what they are telling you they are willing to do. When something sounds a little off, do not be afraid to ask clarifying questions. I do this all the time. What do you mean when you say, you crazy girl? What do you mean? Or what do you mean when you say, you're not good for me? What do you mean when you're telling me if I don't like someone, I'm going to burn them? Now, some of the stuff is self-explanatory, but sometimes when we want to give people the benefit out of the doubt, we have to ask those clarifying questions so we make sure that we're not on the wrong end of their attack. Last but not least, we must remember, we are not bulls. Do not run towards the red flags. I say that again, we are not bulls. Don't run towards the red flags. There's no need to do that. This world is full of very, very, very good people, amazing people. There is no need for us to not believe when somebody tells us exactly who they are and what they're going to do. Well, this is it for me. This was the episode. Again, please, if you can, like, share, subscribe. Try to put the message out there. And if you like something, let me know. And if you don't, let me know so we can get back on the right path. All right, everybody, this has been Dr. Ramsey, and I am out.